is going to work. I don't know if this is going to work. It's just 3 minutes, no, maybe, yeah, 3 minutes on reinforced concrete multi-store building. That is the title of the design brief that Margherita presented. And I have a set of questions here on the screen for the teachers in the audience. If you want to make a note of these questions, because I would like you to watch and listen to the students' presentation and just make notes on this set of questions. If you think that there are features of writing and composition that are lacking in our presentation. First question.
Yes, so we can take pictures. It will be easier for us.
Okay, what features of oral delivery you think are lacking? What do you think that the presentation purpose is achieved? In other words, did she manage to present the design brief of her project? And in general, any advice that you might improve the overall quality of the students' presentation? Then I will show you, I have only another 2-3 slides, my observations on these and other presentations, and see, maybe we can have a discussion on what needs to be added to this set of guidelines to the questions that I developed. So now I'm going to try and share something different, which is Zoom in Zoom. Can you still see this?
Yes.
Now the audio, the sound is going to be interesting because in share computer sound. So hopefully it works, but I'm not sure at this point.
The design brief of the reinforced concrete multi-store building. The design brief consists in the structural analysis of an existing reinforced concrete multi-store building located in Campobasso. The building is for a residential use, and the building constraints are a structural dimension of the existing building, so as shown below. The aggressive exposure class and the category, the ground category and the topographical category, and also PGA. PGA is a peak ground acceleration and is 0.2 times G. G is 9.81 millimeters per square second, and means the medium seismic activity. At the bottom of this slide, we have two plans. On the left, there is the structural grid, and on the right, there is the internal partitions. After this, the building features are the construction material specification and the reinforced concrete structural elements cast in place. For the first, for the material specification, we use the concrete class C30/37 for foundation, beams, pillars, and walls, and we consider B450C for the steel bars. So for the structural elements cast in place, we have floors, beams, pillars, walls, and the direct foundation beam. And floors are built in pretension beams and hollow blocks. Beams are cast in place and have a rectangular section, and so pillars have square section, but external pillars are different to the internal pillar because the internal pillars are smaller than the internal pillar. And finally, we have walls, and the direct foundation beam is a T-section beam, and as shown in this slide. And That's it.
Very good, excuse me. Okay, that's it. Like the student said, I'm gonna share my observations. Like I said, based on this, but also on all other students' presentations that I collected over the past 2 years. So basically, it seems to me that in terms of language needed to write up the brief, you need to have covered drawing types and scales. So you have to have covered the difference between preliminary schematic drawings, construction drawings, and detailed drawings, for example. Definitely the types of views that are quite fundamental to this kind of building projects. So the difference between a plan, a section, and an elevation. A little bit about process seen in terms of collaborative development, so the various stages in the design process, not necessarily here didn't emerge from this particular presentation. Then the language that you need to talk about shapes and also location or movement in space, so adjectives, prepositions of place and movement, existential verbs, the ordering of nouns and adjectives. So for example, the use of multi-story that you saw in the title. More in general, what I would call descriptive language. So the language that you need to talk about features of buildings, to make observational comments, describe construction details. To be able to present orally your design projects, besides all this, you also need a lot of signposting language. So in this particular presentation, you probably noticed that she was transitioning from one slide to the other using after this, and then didn't know really how to finish the presentation and just said, and that's it, even though she had a nice thank you for your attention slide. So another feature that is important for the students to develop their own architectural voice is managing this verbal visual interaction. So she would go as shown below, as shown at the bottom of the slide. On the left, there is this combination of location in place and existential verbs. On the right, there is, instead of perhaps on the right, is. Then, of course, decisions such as how much text you need to put in the slide, how to use captions, how to move on with the presentation, avoiding shunting back and forth. Pronunciation, obviously, this poses a question of intelligibility, whether the L1 realizations jeopardized understanding in an ELF context. So to conclude, basically, this is what I'm going to share in the open educational resources platform from Badge. Things like a matrix where you have a main task and then some useful questions for the student to develop the task. So this is how I'm going to conclude. And I hope that there's some comments or contributions on this kind of material. And thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you very much, Maria. It was really a pleasure to listen to you. And now I think that it will be also some question session, right? So let's ask our audience for questions if there are any.
Hello. I have a question about the feedback that you give to your students after they've presented whatever it is that they were doing. Was it in writing or in speech? And how does it look like? Do you do it together with the whole group, or do you give them personalized remarks? What kind of feedback do you give them?
Yes, thank you. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but this presentation was given by the student in person. I was there in the room with them, with the presenter and with the rest of the class, but it was on Zoom that I recorded it because a colleague of mine was connected. She appeared at some point. She's a member of GELS, not of Badge, but of GELS. So she was also in the audience, and the idea was that both of us would give them feedback. after each presentation so that everybody could listen. And that we did. So I cut it, but I make some comments immediately after the presentation. Then I give the floor to my colleague and she could contribute comments as well. And then I also give them written feedback, personalized written feedback, especially to the weakest ones. So if I see very major linguistic problems, I give them more detailed personalized feedback that I usually upload on these e-learning platform that we have. So it's both common feedback and personalized feedback.
Okay, we have one more question.
Thank you very much, Maria. I couldn't agree more with the kind of feedback you gave to the student. It was very, very informative. It covered many aspects of the presentation as well as of the presentation of the content. Now, my question, I also think that you managed to structure and code very well the way you would develop this course. So my question now is, would you complement the table you've shown us with the type of vocabulary you suggested that they need in order to perform in a more professional manner?
Yeah, you mean these language areas?
Exactly, the language areas.
Yeah, if you think this is useful to combine with the...
Extremely. And yeah, ideally, it would be excellent if you have it next to the block or the, you know, where they have the table and next to the box, just provide with the variety of things that they could be using for. Because for us or for someone who studies English, maybe this is straightforward. But imagine many students around the world, they have some basic knowledge of English and that they are asked to perform in a professional or even in an academic context. So that would be an excellent help for them. Very much, you know, selected language that will be useful for them.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you and well done for what you've done. Thank you.
Okay, we have some more questions. Maybe I will stay with this part of the room first. It's a little bit jogging.
Ciao, Maria. It's Jamie.
Ciao, Jamie. Thank
Hello.
you for saying your name. I was going to ask people if they could introduce themselves because...
Mine's a comment, really. At the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned walkthroughs and video casts.
Yeah.
And I immediately felt that that's something that I would like to do. And I feel that the presentations that your students have done would work really well as recordings. How do you, I know that was the idea at the beginning of the project and you've not been able to do that, but is that something that you would like to do with your students, these recorded run-throughs? Is that something that you might do in the future?
But I mean, I was thinking of maybe including not the full presentations, but just excerpts of what they did as an example of you know, these presenting your own project. Some of them have more animation and they closer to an architectural walkthrough. Again, drawing from their own projects, and I'm willing to publish them, say, together with these matrices, with these tips for putting together the presentation. Having said this, in the future, yes, it would. If one day I can get the students to travel to places and you know, organize architectural walkthrough that are live when you are standing in front of the building, maybe combining multimedia animations that are available digitally with live recording, that would be great. But it would definitely, I think, need these complications of the pandemic to be over. Because at least for us, it's still very difficult to have students travel.
Right. I mean, the recordings that you have will be, as long as the students kind of, as long as you have the students' permission to use them, These would be very useful for future students to use.
Yeah.
But I'm very much attracted to this idea of a recorded walkthrough or a video cast. So let's you and I talk about that later, please.
Okay, definitely.
And I'm rather enjoying holding this microphone. I think I've found a new vocation. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks.
Hi, Maria again. Sorry, I'm Vasilia. Can I just...
okay, Vasilia, I thought I recognized the voice, but I wasn't sure.
Just to follow up to what Jamie suggested, it's something we did in IO6. We had several recordings of students, and we had a good example and a bad example. So since you have some recordings, then maybe you can use this as part of your corpus. And also, I ask you to, I mean, if you've got time, I invite you to our presentation tomorrow morning. So, because I'm gonna show 5 videos. So,
definitely, I'd love to, if that is possible, if the IT allows for that, I'd love to.
Okay, well, yes. Otherwise, you'll watch it recorded. Okay.
Exactly. I would love to watch the recording. Yes, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Thank you. Yeah. In fact, my questions here, I'm not sure I want to use good or bad, but for example, this one presentation, would you consider it a good example, or I mean, someone who did manage to present the design brief or not, for example, someone who achieved the purpose or not? And if not, why? What is lacking? I don't know if anybody in the audience has tried to...
Yes, just give me a sec, I need to run.
Although we are not, well, actually, to answer this question, you need to ask architects or people who are the audience for such tours. Because we may focus on language errors or presentation skills errors, but this is not the point for them. However, if you ask my opinion, I think, yes, she did quite well. She would get a 9 with the, with the 10. Excellent, yes. Apart from some things that had to do with presentation, like guiding the audience, transition of ideas so that they could more effortlessly follow them. But I think technical people are not so much preoccupied with the kind of stuff we as language teachers are. So they want to get their message right away. They are very well familiarized with what she had been, presenting. We are not. So I think yes.
Yeah, in fact, that's why I was interested in your perception of the L1 Italian accent or pronunciation, whether it was affecting your understanding or not. And I mean, the audiences and or not.
Maria, my name is James McGeever. I'm not part of the Bridge badge project or Bridge, either of them. Badge part 2. But thank you very much. It's very, very useful. I wish I'd seen it a year ago before I'd started teaching construction students in Lithuania, where I work. My question is, it was great to see the student present, and I like the idea of the podcast and the videos. It's a really kind of really innovative way of getting them to practice what you're doing in the classroom. But do you give them the chance to incorporate the feedback you've given them to then do another video with the improvements made, so they have a before and after?
Very good question. Very good question. Thank you. What I did this year, I asked them to incorporate the feedback in the presentation that they will give for the exam, for the evaluations. And I haven't yet done exams with this year's students. So I'm going to see the extent to which they incorporate it or not. So basically, I'm going to ask them for the oral presentation to expand on what you saw, taking into account the feedback that I gave them. Yes. So that's a fair question that you make and an interesting point that you raise.
Yes, was it answered? Okay, perfect. Okay, one more question.
Now, Krystyna Drożdżał-Szeles, I'm from the university here in Poznan. Okay, now you've mentioned intelligibility, okay, as one of the important factors which matter in presentations. Okay, I would like to to draw your attention to another one, okay, which is irritability.
Can you repeat it? Sorry, which one?
Irritability. You have
irritability,
yes.
like
okay.
the feeling.
There is a factor, right, and it is known and recognized. There's been a lot of research on it, okay, and this is the factor that may actually interfere with our perception of the presentation. We may purposefully switch off, for instance, right, and not really listen to it. And it is true that if, let's say, if we have a talk like that given to people, to the students of architecture, okay, they might understand, even though there might be problems with intelligibility. Okay, but if we are talking about becoming digital, okay, global engineers, right? Well, obviously we are talking about perhaps using ELF and not necessarily English as a foreign language or English as a second language. Okay, so I really think that perhaps some kind of awareness training. So when we are talking about preparing students for functioning in a digital global community, so perhaps something like awareness training, okay, might be a good idea. So something to be included, right? Like why our presentation, we've put so much time and effort in our presentation, okay, and it's not actually received the way that we would like it to be. People got irritated because of something, okay. I guess this irritability factor, right, intelligibility together with irritability might be two factors to look at. Okay, so this is just a comment.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, yes. I hope. I wish I had more time to work on these kinds of skills that are absolutely important when it comes to oral presentations. Yes, thank you.
Okay, Maria, thank you very much for this, touch of Italian architecture. Actually, the weather in Poland today is quite hot, so I can say that we can feel a little bit like in Italy now. So thank you very much once again. It was nice to see you. It was nice to hear you, even if with some breaks. But
really sorry about the
absolutely okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much once again.
Okay.
And well, some announcement for our group. Okay. So actually now we've got maybe a few minutes of break for toilet or whatever, right? And we'll come back here to have batch partner meetings guided by Katja. And for those of you who would like just to skip this meeting, at 6 p.m. we've got dinner and concert, and actually feel invited. I think that it's worth coming. So yeah, thank you very much for the time being.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Maria, once again. See you. Sorry, I didn't get it. All right. No nie, teraz jest batch partners meeting. Yeah, we stay here.